I want to play a short video now. This one is not on YouTube. Short video about a power bank scam. So can you listen up? I want you to think about how it came about. So let's just have a look. I want you to think about how the scam was orchestrated. So tonight, I hope one of the learning objectives tonight is that you'll know how to undertake a scam. You have to. If you want to understand how to prevent being scammed, you need to understand the steps in making a scam. Okay? So please, after tonight, don't use that information to create a scam, all right? But if you understand how to scam someone, you're in a better position to not be scammed, all right? So let's listen to Charles and just bear with him because he's lots of detail. Wait a minute.
It's a typical roller coaster, and I doubt I'm the only one that has experienced that. As a matter of fact, over the last 4 or 5 days in traveling mainland, and obviously, you know, seeing another foreigner, I always introduce myself. Yes. And I've heard a lot of horror stories. So what I have experienced over the last, I guess, 20 some odd years, I am not the only one. I am not the only one. One company was very interesting. At this show here, a lot of power banks are being sold.
Yes, I've seen them everywhere.
They're everywhere, and normally a power bank is, comprises of a high-capacity battery.
Right.
Which is, it's heavy. You can tell a good high-capacity battery.
Yes.
And one that isn't just by the weight.
3,000 milliamps?
Yeah, 3,000 milliamps, 2,800, whatever they are.
Yes.
And I met one buyer from Norway who was here, and he saw my little speaker thing. He says, "Oh yeah, I read about it, and I didn't have the chance, but I've heard a lot of good things about the seminars that were coming out of Global Sources, both from Mike and myself."
Yes.
And he said, "I have a story to tell you." I said, "Oh, really?" So for once, I'm not telling the story. And he found a supplier, and the supplier, started out selling, 100, then 1,000, then 5,000 of these power banks over the last year.
Yes.
Since the October show, and he was very, very happy with the quality.
Yes.
And all of a sudden he says, now we started to receive complaints from the last shipments that were now released to his clients, which were retailers in the cell phone marketplace, that the batteries wouldn't last long.
Wow.
And, everything is the same, and, they couldn't tell. And these things are sealed, obviously.
Yeah. Okay. So what did the client find out? The battery doesn't last as long. Someone's listening. Right? The batteries don't last long. All right. So then what's wrong with that? What's the scam? Yes. Well, it charges up your phone once instead of twice. That's the problem, right? So how do you think, how does the supplier make money out of a scam like that? Wouldn't it be better if they just sent you a power bank with nothing inside?
Then no one's going to buy from that brand, right?
Okay. All right, so it makes you buy the product because you think it's a power bank, and not until you test it, you realise, okay, I've been scammed. Okay, so one key important ingredient of a scam is that the product needs to look genuine in order to get 100% of the money for the product. Are you with me here? All right. If you put just a shell and you ship that, well, you may only get 50% of the money because the other money is being held up until it goes to port or goes to the other country. Then you found out that it's too late. Then they're chasing after you. All right? So I want you to think about that. There are different ways of scamming. You can do a bad quality scam, but this is a little bit more than that. I want you to listen in, see what the scammer did.
So he opened one up. And what they did is they epoxied sand inside the battery power bank.
Yes.
And had a smaller capacity battery. Now, in Europe and America,
All right, so they epoxy sand inside the power bank, and they had, instead of the full amount, they only got half the size of cells inside. So why would they put sand in replacement for the cells? Yeah, to make it the same weight as what it should be. So you really think it's the real thing, but you don't know until you open it up. All right? So this is an elaborate scam. Like, you've got to have sand, you have the glue, and then you've got to have the process of actually doing all of this. It's not like you just send the power banks out with just half the amount of cells inside.
to put sand in a little plastic thing and encapsulate it will add weight is expensive in labor.
Yes.
Obviously, it's not here because he ordered 20,000 of these. 20,000, and they're all defective.
Now they're defective in that they don't last as long as you expected, because it's only 2,000 milliamps to 3,000.
Correct. And the manufacturer put sand inside the housing to keep the weight the same.
So when the inspector inspects it, they don't see a difference. If weight is a measurement the inspector has to do.
And in fact, he had one of the quality control inspection houses here do the inspection.
Yes. All right, so you had QC. You're probably thinking, oh, we should have QC. Right? We did have QC. So what do you think was the problem with the QC? And this is, okay, not next week, the week after, that is week 8, we're going to be talking more about QC. All right, so we're just ahead of ourselves here. But the big thing about QC is QC needs to ask the right questions. All right, just like negotiation, exactly the same. They've got to ask the right questions, but the QC did not ask the right questions. The QC did not test.
And never did they do a discharge of the battery. They just took a look, they felt it looked good, the plastics looked good, it looked like the original approved samples, and they released the shipment.
Wow.
So now another thing to add in purchase order, just like we mentioned at my seminar, where you need to go and talk about actual tests and measurements. Yeah, so we're going to be talking about in weeks to come. You've got to be you need to know your product. And you cannot say, oh, Mr. Inspector, can you just go and inspect 2,000 of this 20,000 shipment and expect the inspector will know what to do. You need to say, okay, can you not only weigh it, can you also do a discharge of 2% of the sample to make sure there is 5,000 milliamp hour charge inside and not just 2,000 milliamp charge inside. Wow, okay. And put your hand up if you think that was, you would have been scammed like that too. Maybe you have bought a power bank and it doesn't work as well. But how do you know? Like, we're not all EE in engineering, like my RA here, doing EE major in engineering. Yes, Steffi?
Like, once you open the power bank and see sand, can't you just return it and say oh, I don't accept it, or sue the guy?
But it is inside, then you have to open the entire.
You lose your warranty. But whenever you open, the warranty doesn't extend.
You void the warranty once you open it up. Just like what I did for the hard disk drives.
Also, there's nothing you can do about it.
Pardon?
So there's nothing you can do about it. Like can't you still sue the guy?
Can't you what?
Still sue the guy.
What, sue the factory? Oh, we're going to talk about that today. Yes. The statement is, can't we sue the supplier, the manufacturer? Like 20,000 of these. So how much is a power bank? How much, you go on Lazada, how much are you paying? 30, 40 for 5,000 milliamp hour power bank? 50 ringgit? Yeah. So it's going, if you go on to AliExpress and buy 10,000 of them, you'll get, like the USBs last week, you're going to be paying, what, 5 or 10, maybe 5 US dollar, 10 US dollar for a unit.
Depends on how much sand it is.
Yeah, then you multiply that by 20,000. There's $100,000 you just dropped. Like, you're not getting 1 cent back. All right, and that's assuming that you give all your money back to anyone that purchased it off you, you know, through your Shopify or whatever. All right, so this is what we're talking about: scams, and let's learn how we can design a scam. Okay, how to get away with scamming people. We need to learn that tonight. Why? Because then you will be in a better position. All right, what I want to now go, we've got 2 things to do tonight in terms of me providing new information to you. Okay, one, I want to talk a little bit about contracting, and your homework for that content is actually in Udemy. There's a video on the same PowerPoint slide, so make sure you do review that. That's very, very important, and that video I think only goes for 35 minutes. The other side of the content I want to bring you to tonight is our major project where we actually analyse over 1,400 supplier complaints in an academic paper. So we're currently writing it up for publication in an academic journal, okay? And so then we'll get into some real nitty-gritty of that. That's what we're going to do, all right? So then after the break, or the second half of tonight, we've got two groups presenting. Am I right? Whereas group 4, you will be presenting on? Yeah, scams. Then there's some. Scams! All right, you'll be presenting on scams, all right? Like, you've got to either love it or hate it at the end of tonight. You'll be sick of me saying that, okay? And we have another group.
Group 1, sir.
Group 1.
2 speaker factories.
The 2 speaker factories, excellent. I love that one, hot. And what was the other one?
XKL.
SKL, yes. The world loves that one. That's my highest viewed video on YouTube. Nearly 130,000 views. So there must be something about that one, all right? So I'm sure you'll have the class's interest when we go through that. All right. This is, I love this. All right, so let's get into a little bit of law. How many of you have studied some law? Contract? Okay, so international law, is it part of MIB? Okay, so I expect you to know more than me on this topic. You have to, you should. Okay, all right? I'm just a consultant. I'm not a lawyer. In other words, consultants, they don't take responsibility for advice they give. Okay, all right? All right. Okay, contracts, purchase orders and payments. We'll quickly go through some of this, and I want to try and make it interesting for you. Can you win in a court case in a developing country? Maybe India you can. Why? Because they still have a strong legal system. Where are my friends from India? Yeah, am I right? Not really. Not really, okay, right. China is developing, and China has changed a lot since 10 years ago. Now you can win as a foreigner in China. You can win. It's just a matter of you having the right documentation and the right evidence, you can win. It's not like the rules are against you, all right? Knowing that, that means that, if I can go to court in China and I can get money back. Well, my friend Mike Bellamy has won, he's been to court 7 times and he's won 7 of them, 7 of those times. Because each time he went with evidence, documentation, contract, everything. Everything, all the boxes were ticked. Okay, so that happens in China. It does work, all right? So if that works, that is, you have a legal environment that can give you recourse, that means you should pay attention to having some kind of contract, right? Because traditionally you think, oh, we're dealing with developing economies, oh, it's all relationship. Yes, it is relationship, but now increasingly you've got relationship and contract. You need to do both, okay? What is it like in other countries? India, what is it like there?
So the issue is, any case goes on for like 20, 30 years. Yeah, it's that bad.
Okay. Another country? Another country? Pardon? Indonesia. Where's Indonesia? Anyone from Indonesia? Okay.
It's very hard for foreigner to win.
Pardon?
It's still very hard for foreigner.
Very hard. Okay. Bangladesh.
It takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
Pardon?
It's similar to India. Like it takes a lot of time.
It takes a lot of time.
A lot of
If
time.
it's a land case, then it takes ages. If it's disputes, it takes 5 to 6 years maybe.
Oh
As
my
for
God.
suppliers, I haven't seen any reports so far where foreigners.
Okay.
Very under the table, everything happens.
Okay. All right. Good. Okay. So the tables are very high. All right. And Sri Lanka? Same. Okay. Is there any? Wow. Okay. All right. Iceland?
Pretty quick.
Quick. All right. All right. So what does that mean? All it means is that the transaction costs of going to court are just high. All right. It doesn't mean you're going to lose. It just means that, like, it's just going to suck all the money out of you to try and fight something. And so what do? You just give up. All right. So, okay. So then you go backwards to before you're going into a contract. So you go into the contract with that in mind. Ah, okay. So what can you do with that in mind? Well, I've got actually as part of the Udemy course, we actually give access to all of these things, Word documents. I've got samples of all of these that you can have a look at. That is, you have a proper purchase order in place, and you might have a sample memo of understanding in terms and conditions. Okay, and a sample code of conduct. Now in China, the best way to do this is to have it bilingual, that is English and Chinese. Not one page of English and one page of Chinese. No, one line of English, one line of Chinese. Then one line of English, one line of Chinese. All right, so in other countries, maybe not as critical. What about other countries?
It's all different languages, totally English or Bangla.
Yeah, just two main languages.
Two main
Either it's in English or in Bangla.
Okay, all right, all right. So I want you to think, okay, you understand contracting is very critical. If you're going to go into the contracting route, then you need an agreement, all right? So agreement is a general agreement of what's going to be supplied and details on that. But then you may have a separate purchase order agreement, which has details of where you pay the money. Okay, we're good again. All right.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
those defect percentages, who pays for those?
The factory.
Okay, so
What you
go back to the
no, you bring it earlier on into the negotiation. Remember the whole costs of things going wrong when you're trying to follow up and all of that. That's too much. Takes up too much time. All right, going to court takes too much time. So what do? You roll back and you preempt that in the negotiations, and you say, Mr. and Mrs. Factory, look, can you give us 103% of my order, please? In case there's 3%. And if those 3% turn to be out okay, then on my next order, then you can help me out. Okay, so you ask them to actually do that in advance. Sometimes I'll say, no, look, we'll give you 100% of the order you want. If there's any defects, then we'll do it on the second order. But by the second order, if there's defects, you don't want to give a second order from that factory, because you realise, hey, this factory is not really as good as I thought it was. Okay, so just keep that in mind. It's a you need to bring it back to negotiation as much as possible, these terms and conditions. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
All right, so the best way to deal with warranty terms is to try and get them to ship, oh look, can you just give me 2 or 3% more on my order? I want 10,000, look, can you just ship me 10,200 because, you know, there may be some defects in that. All right, and so you get 180 defects, and everything's okay. All right. All right, but when it goes to penalty clauses, what you do here, again, it's negotiation, and just say, look, Mr. and Mrs. Supplier, look, the main penalty I'm worried about now is your delivery on time. Because what suppliers tend to do is they just want to get your order and they want to get your money. And they might even use your money on another assembly because they've promised someone else to make something for them. And then they say, oh, Mr. Buyer, can you just wait for us? Just, you know, it's coming. All right? But so you need to have a penalty clause and say, well, Mr. Buyer, it doesn't matter. I don't mind about when you send it, because if every time you're a day late, you know, we have a clause to say that you'll pay an extra 5% on top. You'll give me a 5% discount. And I don't mind waiting 1 week, 2 weeks or 3 weeks if I'm going to get a 5% discount on the shipment. And the supplier will say, well, don't worry, we'll get shipped to you on time. All right, so that's the type of warranty terms you would have and the penalty clauses that you would focus on. Why? Because they actually work up front. It's not something that you take to court afterwards to deal with. Okay, you just try and deal with them up front. Because remember, if they don't ship you on time, remember you haven't given them 100% of your payment. And if it's written in the contract that if they, for every day late, you get 5% off, maybe not that much, 2% discount on the total shipment, well then that 30% you've been withholding, well that can take up, you know, maybe you don't have to pay it after 1 month, okay? So if it's in there, then they cannot get money back from you, but you can take them to court for non-shipment. And the court will say, well, is there a penalty? Yes, there is a penalty. And so that's how you would use that, right? So they're probably the two big things that you want to think about. Incorporating QC standards and yes, you can, but as we learnt with Charles, what's very important, and we'll learn that in 2 weeks' time. Wait a minute, week, not next week, week after. Incorporating QC terms, the important thing is this is how you communicate with your QC, the person that goes to the factory and does the QC. That is probably as critical as you writing into the contract here. No good writing in the contract if the QC doesn't know how to test or check all of those parts. And if you don't know your product, then not much good of you writing up these terms. You're better off getting a QC to actually write them up for you. All right, so that's very, very important. Okay, so let's go it through. We use the purchase order, we get chopped, we have a bilingual contract, 30, 40, 30, it gets started, right? You're going to give them 30%, and the good news of that, you give them 30%. Why? Because you want them to, they've got to pay for raw materials. How on earth can you expect a supplier to deliver you something if you're not going to give zero, if you're going to give zero at the start? Some buyers expect, oh, I'm not paying anything. I want it delivered first. Like, I don't pay at the supermarket until the good goes into my shopping trolley. Why should I give the supplier 1 cent before I get my delivery? You can't do that. All right, when you're direct sourcing, you've got to give them a percentage at the start. 30, 40, 30 is the ideal. But I haven't met a supplier that really agrees with that approach. Okay, they'll normally say 30, 70. Oh, what does that mean? What's the difference between, is a question for you now, class, hello, all right. What's the difference between 30, 40, 30 and 30, 70? Huh?
Like 30, 70, you're paying just like twice, first the 30% and then the 70%, so that's like 100%.
No, the total is, they both total 100%.
Oh no, like, but the first one you're paying in 2 installments, the other one you're paying in 3 installments.
Yeah, so what's the difference in the installments? What are the difference in the stages?
From what I understand, usually 30 is at the beginning, 40 is when the item is delivered, and another 30 is like usually, it depends on the agreement, usually it's 30 days after the delivery.
This is, okay, so just pretend we're in China, All right, so 30 is when you sign the agreement. And I couldn't believe it. I saw one buyer, he goes in a trade show and he said, and just talks to the supplier, gets out his checkbook and it's right, $20,000, gives it to the supplier. I'm thinking, you've got to be kidding me. This is US dollar, man. All right, 30 is at the time purchase order. 40 is at the time the goods go from the factory to the port. All right, and that's where you may have, you're going to get a customs bill of lading to say that, your goods are at port and have you got all the documentation ready, so you have verification you're at port. But also you may pay a QC inspector to check to make sure that you don't have a box of rocks, because sometimes you have a box of rocks shipped to port, all the documentation's there and it's ready to be shipped to your country. And then 30 when it arrives in your country. I haven't met a supplier who agrees with this splitting the 40 and 30. They always prefer 30-70. Okay, has anyone heard any different? Okay.
But this 70, the 70 is when the item reached at the port.
Yeah, when it gets FOB at port. But, okay, now if that's the case, you better be done sure that the goods that are at that port are exactly the goods that you ordered.
The 30/70 is more reliable for the buyers because if they're paying 30% in advance, after receiving the goods, then the 70. So they have the 70% of amount of money with them. So
You still have the 70% under here too, 30, but you're delaying 30% till it gets to your country.
when it reaches in the port, then you have to pay, if the goods are in the same condition, you have to pay 40 and then again 30.
No, you pay 30 when it gets to your country.
And this,
The 30-70 is 30 here and 70 here at port, at the ship. All right? So if you're paying 70 here, the supplier likes that. But if you have 40-30, then you get to actually unbox and double check the goods in your country, which is ideal for the buyer. So the buyers like one way, suppliers like the other way. Just keep that in mind. That's always a point of negotiation. Pardon?
Is it 50-50 possible?
What, 50 at the start? No, don't do that. You don't give up that much at the start. Yes. Oh, yeah, the supplier would be happy if you do that. Yes, Steffi.
So if it's 30-70, right? And like after the products reach your home country and you realize that it's defect, so it's not a supplier problem anymore.
Yeah.
So like there's nothing you can do, like you can't take legal actions after that, after you've paid money.
Oh, you can always take legal action, but what did we learn 10 minutes ago? From India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, China, it's costly to take legal action. Okay? So you want to try and preempt all these things. Okay? How do you preempt it? You preempt it by stage payment. You preempt it by having QC at this stage here.
But sir, what is really the difference though? Because you have paid 100% when you get the product and see it yourself anyways.
You can test it in your country. That's the big difference.
No, but
Yeah, but like the 30/70.
30, well, you're giving it up, and there it goes on the ship. So that means you need to actually pay for more QC inspection at the when it gets on board on the ship.
But I have a question. For the 30-70, I think there's something to do with the banking as well, because if it's an LC, the bank needs to release a form so that the buyer can go to their port and they can take it from the port. So, and if there's an LC, the lead time process after they reach the country, is there something to do with that as well?
I knew someone was going to bring up that, the LLC. Put your hand up if you know what LLC means. Just two. LLC, letter of credit. Didn't you study international law? Wait a minute. Sorry, is it my English, is it? Oh, okay. All right. Apologise. All right. Okay. Letter of credit. Oh, let me update you on letter of credit. I have not met a supplier who likes a letter of credit.
Because you pay
All right, suppliers hate it. Suppliers hate it. Why? Because you actually,
No advance.
the bank will not release funds until there's full verification of the delivery and quality check and everything. And the suppliers, they hate that.
They rather prefer telegraphic transfer.
Oh, they want money. They want money. They don't want the bank. They don't want escrow holding money. The suppliers just want to deal directly with the buyer. Buyer, you pay me the money. I give you the goods. Why do we need a third party? Don't you trust me? All right. Now, for multinationals, so they got more power, right? We're going to talk about that in week 9, 10, 11. Then, yes, they'll do LLC. Supplier, you don't want LLC? Sorry, we'll take our business elsewhere. Okay, we'll do it with you. Don't worry. All right, because the multinationals are ordering in the millions and things like that, and then LLC works. All right, but it doesn't. All those suppliers you see at the trade show, LLC, no, it doesn't work. Okay, but good. Glad you raised that. We're bringing up all these little tricky ones. Okay, so you clarify the ownership of tooling. That's another big thing. Tooling. Who owns the tooling? Do not allow the supplier to own the tooling. And more about that next week, because we're going to talk about how do you physically protect your IP. Okay, one way is you own the tooling. Okay, you have the property ownership over it, but also you have the physical ownership. How can you do that? You actually you employ a company to hold the tooling physically. And the day before the assembly, the company will deliver the tooling to the assembler. The assembler will set it up. And then the day after assembly is finished, that company will come along, grab the tooling and take it away. All right? So very appropriate legal jurisdiction. We're going to talk about that. And what do we mean by a legal jurisdiction? So what's the best jurisdiction for dealing with China? Or what about India? What's the best one for India? A US company wants to buy from an Indian supplier.
Okay. And so, like, what exactly do you mean by jurisdiction here?
Well, in the contract, if there is a dispute, then there's a jurisdiction that the dispute will be heard in a particular court in this location.
So, sir, mostly it's UK. If it's a foreign company, I assume it's UK.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Because in China, there's a lot of foreigners that come along from the US. They come across China, they do a contract with the Chinese, and they say, oh, my lawyer says the jurisdiction needs to be in USA. Because they know their system and they know how their system works. And they know they'll have protection. But you don't have protection. Zero. It doesn't work that way. All right? You have to, the jurisdiction needs to be in China if you're contracting with Chinese factory. Okay? The only way that jurisdiction in USA will work is if you have evidence that the supplier has committed some fraud and that supplier is dumb enough to fly over to the USA, and then the FBI, you can get the FBI to capture him, her, and then try him under...
That is going to be very expensive, right, sir?
Oh, don't worry, my friend got a supplier to do that. It's happened. Yes. Oh, yes. Amazing. Oh, beautiful story. All right. And it was a supplier, they did a few wrong things, and what my friend did is get Mike Balmy, he got a private investigator to watch and follow the supplier several times. And it took 2 years to entice the supplier to go to a trade show in USA, and when they knew he was coming, they got the federal agents in and they captured him under fraud, racketeering, things like that. And they got it. So if you're not going to the USA, then jurisdiction USA, you're wasting your time. Okay? So India, UK, Bangladesh, what is it?
What law is it?
The people from Bangladesh don't know, but they're still working it out, all right?
We don't know the particular law.
Okay.
But if we talk about the trade law, sir, it's more the CISG that the countries needs to follow, which court to follow, which country to go for, because even you can also go for a Singapore, you can choose Singapore, right? For a trade between China and US.
Yeah, okay, two things. There's two stages here. One is getting a judgment. If you cannot get the supplier in your court of your location, then you can't get a judgment. Okay? Then number two, once you get a judgment, then how are you going to enforce the judgment? How are you going to get the money back? How are you going to get the tools back from the factory? So you need some triads or someone like that in China to go to the factory and get the stuff back. All right? So you know, this is stuff, this is an area you don't even want to get to, a stage you don't even want to get to in contracting. Yes?
So this is part of negotiating, right? It depends on how strong the company is.
Yes, it is. But, okay, so what's the answer to this? The jurisdiction in which the factory is in. Okay, so in China, you could choose Hong Kong, or you choose Guangzhou, Shanghai, Beijing, Chongqing. Why would you choose a large city in China and not a country town where the factory is located?
They have better lawyers and facilities, maybe?
Oh, don't worry, lawyers are very mobile. Come on, why would you not choose a location of the town where the factory is? Yes, the guy at the back. Yes. Pardon?
The table is lower.
The table is lower.
No, isn't it higher at the local?
No, the table is higher.
In the city.
But right idea, exactly. All right. If you go to a small town where the factory is, it's likely the judge knows the factory owner, and you've got a lot of problems there. Okay. So now Mike's had many problems of his clients. The clients have had problems with the factories, and so there was once he went to book a court date, you know, to pursue a claim on a contract that was broken by a factory. Okay, so he rolls up to the court, and the judge sees him. Then, oh, Mike, well, because Mike's been to the court many times. Oh, well, this is all in Chinese and that. And so Mike tells me the judge said to him, oh, why are you here now? I said, oh, I've got this case, you know, the supplier owes 20,000 yuan and this is what happened, blah, blah, blah. And the judge, here, where's the supplier? Give me the supplier's phone number. So he grabs the phone, picks it up, tells the supplier, oh, I've looked at the facts of your contract in the case, I suggest you just pay. Save any time. And then hung up. And the supplier paid. All right? Just amazing. Unbelievable. Just...
We should make friends like them. Yeah.
This is why, well, this is the cost of that 20%. When you're working for an agent, you don't have any of these problems, remember. All right? So let's keep going. We have payment linked to performance, some Chinese name on the contract, bank account, and factory gate. Remember, there are buyers that are still sending money to a name on a contract or a bank account, but it's different from the factory. All right? You've got to have the name on the contract must match, the bank account must match the factory. That goes the same for contracting anywhere around the world. They're not just China, right? There's a lot of generics that you can apply to many different countries. All right, so remember, for intellectual property, next week we'll talk about physical protection, but what, at a very minimum, you need to register. You need to register some intellectual property. You need to limit your exposure. All right. So what is the big thing that buyers do miss out on? What is the big thing that buyers think that they're protected on? What is something? Something to do with intellectual property that they think that, oh, that's all right because in my country it's first to register. Trademarks, patents, yes, because in USA it's first to register. You hardly have to have a working product and you can still register something. Whereas in China, it's first to market. So you can have something registered, but if you're not in the market, someone else brings something out in the market they haven't registered, they'll have protection and you won't. Wow. Okay? Because Apple had an iPad, they were slow to register iPad in China. And someone else went and registered the name, and Apple had to pay mega bucks to get that name to use on iPads in China. Okay? So trademark protection in China it's first to market. Okay? Normally in the USA it's first to register. So you've got to be very, very quick. All right? Very, very quick. It's very important that how do you limit your exposure? Next week we're going to talk about physical ways of protecting. So as you know, Mike Bellamy is a factory in China and it's called a black box assembly. Black box means you don't know what goes on inside. Suppliers don't know, no one knows. And that's the whole secret. That's how you protect things, by not telling anyone. All right? A major supplier to Apple, Coilcraft. How many of you have heard of Coilcraft? Look at Apple's list of suppliers. Coilcraft, it's a US company. There is a lot of their patents and designs that they do not register. Why do you think they don't register their designs? They make an internal electronic parts that go into the iPhone.
So that people don't know how it's made?
Exactly. So, because once you register, then the competitors find out what you're doing and
then after a point the patent expires?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So some companies go to the stage, well, if I want to protect something, maybe the trade laws don't protect me, maybe the patent laws don't protect me, I just won't register it all, I'll just keep protected. Why? Because my product is an internal product of another product, so people won't see it naturally anyway. Okay? And maybe it's a circuitry. So maybe you have to pull it apart, break it down and re-engineer the circuit to find out what the special thing is. And that takes a lot of time. Okay, we'll skip over this because you can watch. Mike Bellamy's got a short video on this in Udemy. I suggest you watch that. It's very, very interesting. I have a short video on Udemy. I suggest you watch that too. Because maybe you've done all of these things. You've done the marketing research. You've chosen a product design. You've sought out the design firm, made production templates. You've met 20 or 30 suppliers. You went online to find 30 more. You narrowed down the supply list. You've sought the quotation from 15. You identified 4 suppliers to visit. Remember what we did last week? We're doing the funnel approach. That's how you do it. Then you visit 4 suppliers. You inspect the factory. You negotiate further. That's what we did last week. All the questions. You're doing all the right things here. You have 1 supplier audited. You do a factory audit. You do a social responsibility audit. You draw up the contract. You sign with the supplier. You make the down payment to cover the materials. You do another payment, 30%, at the 50% stage after the quality audit. Okay? You pay the rest at the FOB stage and final inspection by your auditor. Okay, so it's sort of like a 30-70 arrangement. Fine. Before shipping to the port, the supplier calls and says they have not received the payment at the 50% stage. Oh. But you tell them that you sent it to a particular person's account. This happens. But I sent the money. Didn't you receive it? No. This happens. All right? The supplier said they did not receive it and they're not releasing the goods until you pay up. Or the supplier ships to the port. Your goods have problems unforeseen by the auditor. Perhaps needles left in a soft, cuddly toy. Yes, that has happened. Okay? That happened. Can you imagine a needle in a little teddy bear that you're cuddling up close to at night time before you go to sleep? Huh? Oh, yeah. Oh, don't you understand? Who's involved with manufacturing and sewing? Where's our footwear person? Footwear. sewing machines in your factory?
Yes, sir.
All right. Do you break needles
Yes, sir.
every day?
Every day.
Every hour?
Every day.
Exactly. You're just breaking needles all the time. So they're going to get lodged in the product. So what you normally do, you have a,
You have a mouth.
if you're manufacturing soft toys, what do you have at the end of the assembly line before you put them into a box? Your QC, you need something a bit more than that. What do you really need? What, you have someone that just feels everything. Ouch! Oh, there's a needle in that one. No, you wouldn't do that. You can't. What do you do? Come on.
A metal detector.
A metal detector. Does it have a metal detector? You have one. All right? That's why you have a metal detector. Everything goes through the metal detector. So there was this one factory that was relocating in China. True story. The factory makes soft toys. They're relocating, so they outsourced part of the production because they're relocating some of the machinery. And so the outsourced teddy bears came back, but they forgot to put them through the metal detector. And the owner of the factory, luckily, found one of the teddy bears with the needle in it. Okay, so it does happen. It does happen. All right, that's okay. I want you to, this is in the Udemy, so we'll go through this in Udemy, but I want you to realise that often what we learn in contract law either comes from the UK or it comes from the US. And both those law jurisdictions assume a lot about a stable environment, level playing field, and evidence, very evidence-based. I've got the evidence. My case is rock solid. Well, you know, but when we go into other countries, if we go into China, it's very important that there is no mutual trust if you try and collect debt. The point of and the process of arguing is different. In the USA or in Western democracies, when you argue, the whole point of arguing is, well, let me tell you what I think happened. Then you shut up, and then someone else says, well, this is what I thought happened. And then you sort of try and meet and arrange and come to some agreement. It's kind of like people think that's a civil way to resolve disputes. But that's not how you resolve disputes in a lot of developing countries, especially like China. Because once you start having effective demand letters and how much the Chinese firm owes from its failure to do X, or let the China firm know in no uncertain terms how miserable, expensive will make their lives if it does not pay our client and pay it fast, all right? It's not going to work, okay? All you're going to do is you're just going to drive them away and they're not even going to respond. They're just going to ignore you, okay? All right, the American court setting is long demand letters, fact, law, and a jury outcome as expected, okay? In China, it's fast and efficient, fast and furious, all right? Litigation is based on fact, not expert opinion. So what will happen in a Chinese court of law is the judge will look at the facts and he'll actually decide on two things. Okay, how much is the penalty? Oh, the contract says, oh, if it's delivered 10 days late, you should get $1 million penalty. The judge will say, well, I don't think that penalty is fair. I think maybe just $10,000 penalty. And then the judge will say, well, I don't think it's 100% the fault of the factory. It's only 50%. So penalty, $5,000, done. Next case. All right. So they will judge on two dimensions. One is, okay, here's the evidence. Did someone do someone else wrong? Okay, what is the penalty? But they'll ask the question, what is the fair penalty, not what the penalty is written in the contract? Okay? And number two, they'll ask, we need to share this. What's the shared responsibility in this? Is it 100-0? Is it 50-50? Is it 30-70? They'll ask those two questions. Is that the case in other countries? Anyone? Did you study international law? Didn't they teach you stuff like this?
So there's also arbitration.
I haven't got to that yet, but I'll get to that shortly. All right? But I want to know. I don't just want to tell you all the China stuff all the time. All right? Okay, so there's positives and negatives with the China court system, we understand. All right, so here's the decision matrix. Normally a letter of demand is here, and then once you do a letter of demand, sometimes you can just cut off mediation, arbitration, and litigation. Because once you make a letter of demand, basically you just spoil the relationship immediately. Okay, gone. Okay, so if you do that approach, you're actually destroying the relationship. Maybe the cost is low, maybe it's quick time, maybe you don't get alignment, maybe they just ignore you. Okay, all right, so the letter of demand has all of these contexts, but it doesn't always work. Mediation is the new thing that a lot of people are focusing on now, all right, and that is where we're actually focusing on accept a dispute, we prepare, mediation, reach agreement. So for mediation to work, then you need to have a clause in the contract. If there's no clause in the contract, then there's not much you can do. All right, what do I say at the outset here? All right, the last thing you might do is go to court. Why? Well, we know from a number of countries, it just takes a long time. Huge transaction costs. Really, do you want to be on the news? Like, that's the only benefit, right? You get into social media, you're on CNN, you're on the news, everything. You know, walking up the court steps every day for the next 90 days while your court case is being heard. If you think that's great, then that's why you may do that. But you want to avoid that. So we go back to the contract stage, all right? So you're putting all these different terms in the contract so you can minimise any problems when they occur. Like, you want to minimise having to go to court. All right? So you need to, all right, you not only protecting tooling, not only warranty, not only penalties, now you need to have an arbitration clause. Wow. All right, and so that's something that you have to negotiate in and say, look, you know, this is much easier than going to court. And you say, Mr. and Mrs. Supplier, look, the reason why we have an arbitration clause is that allows us to keep any dispute private. They think, we like that. We like that because they don't want any dispute to be public. And so that's a way of negotiating for an arbitration clause. Okay. All right, just skipping through things here. Okay, so just keep in mind, mediation is the new thing, as you just said. And can you please because I want to go on to scams and talk more about that in it. But can you please review these slides in Udemy? Just go through it because I go through the same slides in the Udemy course. You've got access to the video. Remember, I'm not asking you to watch videos each week, all right? There's only one I've only asked you so far. Some of you have watched all the videos, which is amazing, but that's voluntary. Okay, what I want to do now is we're going to move on to scams because time is moving up. All right, we're going to have a break for a short minute, but let me just summarise what we talked about. Okay, what is the big idea? What is the big takeaway? All right, the big takeaway is you need to think about these things at the contracting stage. All right, there's a lot of things you need to think about at the contracting stage. Okay, arbitration, penalty clauses, warranty clauses. Okay, if you're going to put in, if there's a problem with the contract, go to court, you need to put in a jurisdiction, a location of jurisdiction. So then you better put in a major Chinese city or a major city in the country where the factory is. Okay. Wow. So doing the contract is quite complicated. Not really, it's just a lot of standard things you just have to put in there. The complicated thing is trying to convince a supplier that all of these terms and conditions are for their benefit as well as yours. I think that's probably the hardest thing. Okay, but generally, most suppliers who are experienced in selling overseas, not selling to their local market, all right, are pretty familiar with, well, you know, you're a foreigner, you need a contract, okay, we'll do this just for you. All right, that's their approach. Okay, but that doesn't mean as a foreigner you think, oh, just do the same copy contract that someone else did. You need to understand, why do you have a penalty? Why do you have warranty? Why do you have a particular location? Why do you have an arbitration clause? Okay, so that's the big idea. All right, let's have a break for 5 minutes, no more. We come back, I want to do scams, and then we're going to do 2 presentations tonight. Am I right? So we're okay, everyone, let's crank this one. It's about scams. Now, we've got 2 presentations tonight. I want to give as much time for them as possible. One's doing scams and the other one is doing 2 factory visits. So we want to get onto that shortly. But how bad is it? This is how you scam. If you want to scam someone in the supply chain world, then you need to do the following. You need to focus on a high value, small size product, like a little watch, like anything small with electronics inside it that gives you the justification to charge a large price. And the shipment can go in the size of something smaller than a shoebox. And if you use famous Western brands, there's always sloppy buyers around. No PO, no audits, no due diligence. There's always buyers around that are looking for something cheap that they can buy immediately online, thousands of units, and then the scam artist will send you. But it's more than that. If you really want to scam someone, then you need to think about the following. Okay? You need to create a website like this. Have a look at this website. This is a real website. Okay? Look at that, groovy 3-wheel motorbike, tricycle. Love it, look at that. And guess what? You can FOB price $200 US. Would you believe that? Don't worry, some buyers did and they were scammed. This is a scam because not only this website has snowmobiles, motorcycles, jet skis, segways. No one factory can make all those things. Impossible. Okay? Oh, a track bike. Okay? That's how you set up your website. Say, there's something for everyone. Or if you want to have a scam in the trade show, you say you're a factory that makes 101 different items and you get so colourful and everything is there. There's something for everyone. And so you attract the buyers in. They think, wow, your factory, you're so different from all the other factories. All the other factories seem to be so boring because they just make one thing very, very well. But you seem to be able to make lots of things. Yeah, don't fall for that. Okay? And that's how they get the buy. Look, the website, cameras, machines, camcorders, computers. All right? Anything you want, they'll sell it to you. Give them the money. I don't know if you'll get delivery. They'll take your money. It happens. Okay? This is the same website. The factory size, it's 5,000 square metres. R&D staff, 80 to 99 people. QC staff, 80 to 99. You've got to be joking. In the 50 factories I've visited, I think I counted on my hands how many QC staff I've ever seen in the factories. They don't have QC staff. Here's a factory that has 99 of them. Factories, location, floor 4, building, Northeast Road. 5,000 square metres on a 4th floor building? No way. All right? So you've used your common sense. This is all the information on the website. This is a real scam website. Okay. And, oh, by the way, don't worry about your bank. Western Union. We like Western Union. That's a good one. Why? Because you cannot trace the payment. All right? They take your money and off they go. That's the last you'll see of it. All right? So real website, real scam. So, and there's Charles again. what do I show him? You watch him on YouTube. He was then on that day explaining
that just showed up, and their experience
another scam.
with manufacturers here, where they found a product, and typically, you know, we always recommend that, you know, someone that buys product pays 30% down, and then 40% on proof of shipping. So not before shipping, but here's a pickup that's already been made by the carrier.
All right, so they paid the money, they dropped $200,000 US, and they got a box of rocks. Okay? Oh, that's not all. The same buyer put down that a lot of money again later on and lost that again too. Like, don't people learn? All right? All right? You can watch that on YouTube, so I don't go waste your class time with this, but I just want, there's a lot of depth in evidence that I've got on scams, and especially on YouTube and different mediums. So just, all right, there are 3 different types of scams if you're interested. But then there's the advanced scams, Shanghai Supplies, Zhejiang Screwjob. All right, these are real scams that have occurred. All right, the classic one is you pay the deposit and nothing is shipped. Okay? It's on its way. That is, you ask for proof of shipment, the scammer sends proof of shipment, you pay the dollars, you get a box of rocks. Okay? They send you a box of rocks. Why? So you'll pay the final amount, FOB or in port. It's on its way. And so this is real. Okay? A Frenchman working out of, she was excited about the smartphone. It was about 5 or 6 years ago. She knew she wanted clones of something that looked like Apple, but she didn't want to buy the Apple itself, so she brought clones. They were still expensive. What happened? They shipped a bunch of broken cell phones. So the shipping document says here are a couple of pallets worth of cell phones coming. Yes, they were. And she paid the money. Later she found out that they were all junk. They were broken, missing batteries, cracked screens. I've showed you those copy phones in class 3 weeks ago. You know what I'm talking about. All right? So 100,000 euros. 100,000 euros. That's a nice scam. It's a nice scam. Wow. Okay? Milk the cow. Milk the cow is not necessarily the supplier gets away with everything. They do things for you, but they ask for a little bit more. Can you give me a bit more for this? When you ask for something, oh, there'll be another $50 for the battery, $400 to get customs clearance, oh, $1,000 if you're already given a deposit, but you need a little bit more. Oh, what you paid me is for EXW, not FOB. EXW is X works after the factory rather than FOB. Oh, it's going to cost $1,000 to get shipment to FOB. Oh, but you didn't tell me that before. Well, you didn't ask me, did you? All right, and so little things like that. So this is a typical scam. Or the Shanghai Surprise. This is a real email scam where it's dangerous. You let the supplier use free email account. So many of these buyers, because they want to save money for whatever reason, they use Yahoo, Hotmail or something like that. Okay? Often they're lazy with their passcode. So a third-party hacker breaks into the Hotmail account, sees the communication, contacts the buyers and says, oh, I'm your new account manager. When is your next order coming? Wonderful. Here's the latest bank information. Please send the funds or release shipment immediately. You never send funds. If someone sends you an email, oh, we've got a new bank account, then something is going on. Okay, that's a classic scam where they actually change the bank account. Normally it's either a scammer doing it, or it may be an inside person in the factory doing that. Or it might be an outside person who is colluding with the factory, because the factory later on will say, well, not our fault, we didn't know about this. Sorry, Mr. Buyer, just bad mistake. All right, and so this is what we mean by the Zhejiang Screwjob, where this case is even sinister. The seller actually works with the hacker. In other words, the factory works with the hacker. So they tell their friend to hack into their email account, give them the passwords, get the money from the buyer, and then when the buyer contacts the seller says, oh, we've been hacked. In reality, the hacker is a friend of the factory and they're sharing the money. Ah. That happens. Yes. Are you getting all this? You got some ideas how to scam people? All right? So it's so easy to avoid scam. Do your research, ask for references, structure payments to performance, check supplierblacklist.com, verify the verifications. Okay? Our group 4, where's group 4 tonight? You're doing supplier blacklist tonight, aren't you? You're doing that, okay? So we're going to get you up the front so you can present in about 5 minutes. And I asked them specifically to present on the supplier blacklist, not necessarily my academic research paper. Put your hand up if any of you want to hear all about my academic research paper. Okay, understand. I didn't think so. All right. Okay. Protecting governance. All right. So that's the name of the paper, Protecting Governance in Cross-Border E-Commerce Supply Chains. But here's one thing I just want to show you. All right. This is real. This is what happened in 2017. We talk about corporate social responsibility, where the China government decided to crack down on factories. Their environmental practices, stop their pollution. How do they crack down? Well, they send people in, like this. Send people in to factories to make sure that they're not manufacturing. So what do the factories do? What do you think the factories did when this happened?
They worked
They
on the night.
closed down, they ran away.
They worked at night time. All right, now remember this is cat and mouse. All right, so factory, you're going to do that? Oh, then we're going to do this. All right, so this is real, all right? Now, that corporate social responsibility, anyone interested in that, like, you know, this is a big environmental push that China government put through in 2017. And actually, that's not a bad thing because there was a lot of dirty factories there's dirty factories in all developing countries. And people complain about China, we tell them, well, you should go to Bangladesh and India and to see a real factory. then you'll realise, well, the China's factories are not that bad after all. Okay, all right. I'm not picking on anyone, all right? Okay, so, and I'll just show you a bit of data from the blacklist. Notice there's a lot of scams, but there's a lot of the complaints are about price and negotiation, lack of labour, missed lead times. How do you get scammed? As I said, electronics, industrial. How do you avoid being scammed? If you're new to sourcing, stick to kitchenware, stick to office, sports and outdoors. Maybe stick to clothing, but then clothing is not free from scams after. What are the top provinces? Mainly Eastern Seaboard. Why? Because that's where a lot of trade is taken from. What about the top buyers? Well, all over the world. People from USA get scammed. But of course, you know, it's more here, more complaints here. Why? Because there's more trade with the US. We understand that, all right? Buyers from Malaysia have complained. Buyers from all over the world. It's not if you're from a developing country, you get scammed. They don't care who you are, where you're from. You pay the money, we love you. If we can scam you. Okay? All right? So, and you know, some more detail here. The stage of the relationship, it normally happened in the initial order. Experience, normally most of the complaints had first time it happened. Okay? Formal contract. 3/4 had a contract, and they still got scammed. Okay? And visit production site. No! What was the big thing I was saying last week and the week before? Visit the factory. Okay? All right? Information business license was accurate. No. Okay? No independent QC took place. Okay, so there's all these data out there. Like you think, oh man, it's so easy to avoid being scammed if you just do all these things. But it's amazing the buyers you meet that still do not do these things. So with that, I want to allow, where's our group? Group 4, I want you to come up and present. Can you give them a hand, please?